Okay. I think that's good. I'll double check.
All right. Okay. I want to thank everyone for coming. I really appreciate you guys meeting with me. I'm really excited to talk about close reading for the upcoming school year. Before we really get started, I know we have a little bit of background with close reading because of the lessons we did with Patrick at our building meetings. But what I want to do is I want to give everyone a couple sticky notes. And I want you to write down just whatever words come to mind, whatever you think of when you hear the words close reading, thoughts, feelings, why we have to do it. There's pencils. Take a few minutes to do that. Once you have your thoughts written, you can just come up and stick them on the close reading poster. Could be questions. If you have questions. That is a good question.
Okay, I'll leave it.
Oh, one or two. At least one from everybody. Well, just gonna check this. Okay, all good? All right, I see some good things up here. Close reading is having students dig deeper for meaning, very good. Multiple readings of a text, moving students from the literal simplistic level of understanding to a deeper understanding, excellent. Students have to look over the text multiple times. I see that one a lot, and that's good. Understanding deeper, reading many times, keywords and questions. And why do we need to close read? That's an excellent question, and we're going to talk about that. So that was very good. We do have a good background knowledge, like I said, from doing those lessons with Patrick. He really talked about, remember we closely read articles that were for us, for our own professional development. So now we're going to move on and see how we can take that skill and apply it to our students. So before we move on, let's just remember the definition of close reading is the instructional practice of having students critically examine a text, especially through multiple readings. And you guys mentioned that, so that was excellent. And that's from Dr. Fisher, who I'm familiar with. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little presentation. And if you notice, this says close reading phase 1. This is going to be a 3-phase meeting. And we'll talk about that at the end. So use this because it wasn't working nicely earlier. Okay, so where are we now? Where are we headed? Right now, what do we know about close reading? Talked about that. You guys have excellent background on that. The future, how can we utilize close reading in our classrooms? That's what we're going to talk about today, part of the 3 phases. Today's phase 1, which leads us into the resources to put into immediate practice. So what we're going to talk about today is something that we can use. You can read it tonight, well after we go over it, you won't even have to, and then use it tomorrow. So I think that will be good for us. Okay. We're going to answer your question, why do we need to use close reading? A big point is that the standards have changed. Brown and Katz state that among the most significant shifts in ELA is the expectation that all students will be able to read increasingly complex text proficiently and independently. So that's a big statement, especially that it says all students. So we really need to think, how are we going to have that happen? close reading is going to help us get there. This was taken right from the Common Core Standards Initiative, right off of the state website. Students who meet the standards readily undertake close, attentive reading. Right up here, it's easier. That is the heart of understanding and enjoying complex works of literature. They habitually perform the critical reading necessary to pick carefully through the staggering amount of information available today in print and digitally. They actively seek the wide, deep, and thoughtful engagement with high-quality literary and informational text that builds knowledge, enlarges experience, and broadens worldviews. Okay, so some words stick out to me. The close attentive reading. Habitually is a big one because this is going to become second nature to the students. That's our goal. That when they read when they read, they're closely reading. They don't even have to think about it. They also mention wide and deep reading. Wide reading is the reading of many texts. You're kind of blowing through stories, maybe answering some questions. But then the deep reading is that repeated, engaged reading. And students really need both to be successful. Let's look at some of those standards. I just chose two. There are many. The first one is from Key Ideas and Details. Determine the central idea or themes of the text and analyze their development. Summarize the key supporting details and ideas. Craft and structure. Interpret words and phrases as they are used in the text, including determining technical, connotative, and figurative meanings. And analyze how specific word choices shape meaning or tone. So both of these standards can utilize close reading strategies to help you be successful in achieving those goals. This is main idea, main parts of the story, supporting details. You're looking through the story closely to understand what the author's main purpose in reading that text is. Same thing for craft and structure. Author's craft is a big part of close reading. We're seeing why an author is using these specific words. Is he changing the tone of the story? Does he want you to have a deeper understanding of something? Our next point for why we need to use close reading is close reading can help with a wide variety of literacy skills, including fluency. I think fluency is sometimes overlooked because it's thought of as an early elementary skill. Once you're a reader, you should be fluent. And that's not always the case. So there's been studies that show that wide reading of a variety of texts is beneficial for some students. However, struggling readers need to experience deep reading of text to help with fluency. They really need that repeated reading. Our next point is that administration and staff have expressed interest in the topic of close reading in order to stay aligned with the new state standards and to achieve goals set in our student SGOs. So I spoke with Patrick, and he really expressed that we need more support with close reading strategies. And also, we set our grade level SGO to have our percentage of our students reading at or above grade level by the end of the year. And close reading is going to help with that. It's going to help with the comprehension portion and the fluency portion, which, as we talked about, they work together, so we can have our students achieve that goal. The last one, test data from previous years has shown a deficit in the area of text analysis. It's sad but true. It's the reality. Our data shows that we need to intervene in that area. So we're going to practice close reading to help with that. The next part is resources. So I want to show you a little something. I'm going to go out of here and show you a website. I'll just click that out. All right, so there's this website, achievethecore.org. Oh, and I'm sorry, here are your lesson notes that go on the slides. You can write on those. The next page has the website written down. So you can find it later. It's a really great website. It's really easy to use. It's just achievethecore.org. It's developed by educational professionals, and they really take a look at the new standards and what we can do to achieve the goals set in those standards. If you just type in close reading in the search, many many resources come up on the website. We're going to focus on the exemplar text. Sorry, it's so slow. But there are many great things like text-dependent questions. So when you have a chance, you can really take a minute and explore the website. But we're going to focus on these close reading exemplars. So all you have to do is click on that. And hopefully it will come up. It's a little slow today. And the great thing about this website is it changes a lot. So they are constantly adding new things, but you're going to find your grade level. They have a few for third grade. We're going to focus on the fisherman and his wife today because I think it's a really great starting point. So you can just click on this document and it prints it out for you, or download so you can print it out. I have copies for you. Yes, Patrick did give this to us before. That's why I thought this was a great place to start because I don't know how many people utilized it, and I used it and I thought it was a really great starter lesson for close reading for the students. And as a teacher, it really set up the framework for how to move on with close reading. Okay, so there's the lesson. I'm going to go back to our presentation. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is I'm actually going to have everyone read the story part. I'm just going to show you how this is set up really quickly, and then we can move on with the actual lessons, just so you have an idea of what to expect. So the first 2 pages are an overview. Well, yours is the first page. I'm sorry, front and back. I copied yours front and back. The first page is an overview of what's expected from the lesson. It's a week's worth of lesson. The next, probably 3 pages, right? Yeah. Next 3 pages is the actual story, and then the rest is the lesson. So if you can just pull out the story part, and I'm going to give you a couple minutes to look over the story, and then I'm going to do an overview and discussion about day 1, and then we're going to do a little activity for the rest of the days. So I'll give you a few minutes to look over that. read this story? Or, yeah. It's pretty appropriate to the beginning of the year because fables and folk tales are in the first unit of the model curriculum, so it's a good place to start with that also. But let's just do an overview. If you want to go back to the packet, you can leave the story out. It's not going to interrupt it, but just quickly, I'm going to do an overview and talk about day one a little bit, and then we're going to do our activity. So the purpose of this activity is to explicitly model the process of searching and interpreting text in order to answer an analytic focused question, and then to put the students to have their analysis put into writing. So to answer the question, and focus questions is going to be a part of phase 2, so we will talk more about that. To answer the question, students were guided in gathering and interpreting evidence in the text to come up with a deeper understanding of the story. So it's close reading. They're also questioning the author's choices of words and phrasing and structure of the actual text in order to better understand the story. So if we look at day one, if you kind of just go through a little bit, it's right after the story is day one. It's like this. And if you look, it's a little busy, but you're really only looking at this side. The other side is just the example of the text of where you're finding that information. So you're really just looking at that right side there. So for day one, you're going to give an introduction, but keep it brief. You don't want to give too much away. That's the point of close reading, that the students are extracting the information. You're not telling them. So then the second part would be an independent read. Now, Sean asked a really good question. He said, well, this wouldn't be for my lower level students. You're going to have to differentiate. If you feel like your students can handle it and you're going to have them read independently, that's fine, because you are going to do a read aloud next. But if you really have some low-level students, special ed students, ELL students, you may want to do something like a small group read aloud while everyone else reads it independently, or you just want to read it to your whole group. It's up to you. You're going to have to make that decision. But the next part is a read aloud. You're going to read it again, making sure you have really good expression and tone, and letting the readers know that this is how the story is supposed to sound. And you're going to have a discussion with the group. Again, not too much. You don't want to give away. You want the students to really, be picking out the information. You're going to discuss some things like vocabulary. And if you notice, some words are underlined in the story, and then on the side, they define them. So the author really thought that those words were big words, they were tricky. Some of them were old-fashioned words like shall. So they decided to just give them those definitions. Also some contextual things like making inferences on some of that social hierarchy, like, oh, so is a king, who's more powerful, a king or an emperor? They're going to have to infer, well, I think it's an emperor because, she's the last thing she has to be, or one of the last things like that. And also sentence structure. Some of that old-fashioned language is really difficult for kids to interpret. And in this activity actually, or this lesson actually includes a wordplay activity talking about word choice. So things like, and if you look in the back, this is a great lesson. I can't take credit for it. They supply you with those things. So there's even a little activity to talk about the patterns of that little prose in there, and using contractions, that it's easier to understand. Look, said the wife, is not that nice. If we make it into a contraction and make it more modern language, look, said the wife, isn't that nice? The kids understand that. One of the kids went, oh, like they didn't get it until they read that isolated like that. So that's a really good activity. Okay, so that's pretty much it for day one. It really breaks it down, which I think this is that's why it's a great beginning lesson. So what we're going to do for days 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, I'm going to partner you guys up. So Allie and Sean, why don't you do days 2 and 3, and you guys can take 4 and 5. All I want you to do, and there's highlighters and pencils here, just read through and kind of outline the focus points for the next 2 days, and then we're going to share with each other. So then that's pretty much it. That's the whole lesson, and we'll know exactly what to do. Okay, so help yourselves.
Sorry, I just wrong.
I'm a highlighter. I need a highlight Hi, Andrew.
We were really excited we missed what we're doing.
What happened?
We were really excited we missed what we're doing.
I know.
We're
You're so excited to be partners. You're just gonna read through lesson day two and three, and pick out the framework of the lesson, where the main components that you're going to be talking about. And I also have student samples here, in case you want to reference. I have that, and we can share more of that. So in case you're looking for student samples, let me know. I can pull those out for you.
You're right.
Okay, so here's day two.
If the setup's annoying you, you can staple it.
Story on this side.
Yes, right.
That's one page. Okay. Okay, so yes, we're proposing this. About.
And then I agree with you.
Right into this. Oh, because.
Yeah, sorry.
If it's
I don't know.
30,
I had copiers yesterday, so.
First day.
I know it's not that.
It
It's,
is normal.
I was
10
reading it
minutes.
like going
So
from
they're
here,
going
flipping it
through
over, and
Oh,
starting back
yeah.
here, and not
Yeah.
reading it like this is
The way that's
split
done.
weird.
Yeah.
But that's not your fault.
True.
So we have to do
So.
this side.
Yes, the other side is just the section of the text.
I know, I still have.
Right,
Um,
the focus much, okay?
yeah.
Alright, so we're gonna reflect on the notes.
Oh, I like this. Simpsons will have to answer.
Yeah.
That's the first thing we do.
Okay, so. Was the correct organizer right here?
Yes, it's
Okay.
the very last page, I believe. And it's just has a copy of front and back, or copy of it.
Any questions?
Okay, so they're just.
So
We're
gonna
gonna,
do-
I think, we're gonna, and,
Good.
they're using it sort of,
Yeah.
what was the question?
Thank you, Anya.
I just think we wanted this eventual, like, look at everybody at once, that's the
Right
way.
here.
But some areas, some sections.
And that's what we're gonna need.
Or like, once they
But
find
they'll
out that
find
like
it,
before
yes.
this is usually when they talk about.
Yes, so then we'll leave that.
Yeah.
Okay, so. All I can think about when we're reading it is the one from the NJS prep book. What was the one with the husband and the.
The
Yeah.
Kept going back,
Yeah.
or it was, yeah,
It was
what was, I
repeated.
couldn't remember
Was
the
that a farm or
names.
something?
It was like, it sounded like Hansel and
Oh,
Gretel, but it
yeah,
wasn't.
Hans and
Greta or something.
something like that. That's what I kept thinking just because of the way it's written.
I like that.
So I have.
Something fables had in common.
And then model. With this story, and that story with the wives, or the women being
Yep.
the real.
Yeah.
Like.
That's something you can bring up with your students.
Women are not like that.
No.
Okay, that's good for us. What are you doing? You're working too much.
Don't wait till you
She's
guys
like-
right?
She's bringing her A game.
She's like highlighted,
I have to highlight and write.
and then she's writing the
I
same
have to,
thing.
I'm the same way. You should see my stuff.
Don't let you do day, right?
Yeah.
I'm on day three, you're still
Okay.
writing.
Okay. Day three. Yeah.
Are we doing it wrong? They're like on their second day.
Then we still got
Yeah.
the
We're just-
year.
Where
Isn't
we
that
go.
important, this one?
Refer
The
back
answer's
to
not
on
supported
I think
by
anything in
text.
boldprint's important.
So it's the same
Okay.
definition.
It's true.
Refer back to the
That's why they bolded it.
It's the
They-
text feature, you're right. It's like,
Evidence-based,
collected evidence.
right?
So let's say we're doing the
Answers
same
that are
thing, but
supported by
they're
text
pointing
and
down to the
included
next
in
part.
inquiry, so we
Oh,
want
I
them
like
to
Realistic to the
Great
next
visual
level
background
up.
Right.
teaching.
Has to
That's
be
cool.
affect
It's really
support,
creative.
Supported, yes. That is important.
I really like that.
Me too. I think that's good. Wait, this is.
You're on the focus question, I'm on the paints.
Alright, use the
Like, yes,
substitute.
painting.
Cut.
But still, I was like, that's great.
Yeah.
Something.
This page.
This page. Two, wait,
No, because be short of this.
because this is another two.
So be short of this focusing something. Incorporates the must be this page. Right?
Yeah, but I don't know where this goes. Watercolor paints, I'm not sure what that is.
That's day three, right?
Oh, this is day three.
This is day three?
This one's day three, so I think we messed up.
My blood work.
It went like this. You're good, you're
Front
right.
back, front back.
You're right.
Are you good?
Okay.
You're right.
So I'm just gonna write day four.
I know, they're not numbered. It's the downfall. That's a good.
Again, that fall, so.
Did I, this is a free resource?
I'll email
Can
them
I
later.
stress that?
I'll email them later in the comments. Please number your pages. But then if you would have stapled it, I would have been like.
That's what I thought,
Ripping
so
at it, too.
I paper clipped it.
No, it's me.
I love this. But you see how it's kind of the fourth, and then there's exactly what. But like,
Here's the other oral share, right? Their oral share. Right, and I said they had to be clear.
No.
I said that there was not text.
Yeah, but all of this is to. Right.
Give an answer. Agreed.
Okay.
So now- So day five is on the one page.
work together on it.
Curriculum.
Yeah.
Is day five
They
only
did
one
have
page?
partners, we'll talk about that, but
It's
for
really
that
hard
part
to
they
do
did it
it.
independently.
American
I'm sorry, day 5,
There's only one page.
yeah, it's not very long. Cause you're setting them up to
I just want to show this.
do the writing, yeah,
Do you want us to go back to the first one?
it's okay.
Is that first one?
Is that the things that are used for topics?
I'm sure it's okay.
I think they're just orders. Ready?
Is that her name?
Yeah. Yes, sorry.
It's just good to say, I was like, oh. This is sticky notes. It's all about sticky notes. These are, they're out of the sticky notes. Why? I don't know. And then the picture.
We're doing day 6 too?
No, not yet, I'm doing an overview, day 6.
Okay.
Which door?
When we're all finished, we can go back to page 2 of the lesson, so that we can.
Thank you.
Yep. Alrighty, good? Jenna needs to organize herself back. I know, there
No,
really needs to be
we're
page
good.
numbers for some reason, I don't know.
So this is one. Go ahead,
Okay, so day 2 and 3, if you would like to explain the expectations for days 2 and 3, and I have some samples.
Okay, day 2, is when the focus question is posed, so why does the sea change throughout the story? And then one of the things that we thought was interesting where it said, don't let them answer immediately, because some students will want to answer immediately, that the whole point is that they look back and they reread. We also pair them, the students, with sticky notes and model how to look back and skim the text to find the sections that answer that focus question.
Before we go to day 3, there was a question that we wanted to post as well. It says to skim the text.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes, this is now their 3rd read,
Okay.
so, they should, and that's a good point, I remember doing this, specifically teaching them, this is how you skim the text. If you know that this is the first time you're seeing that, verse, and that you know something happened right before you saw that, you don't have to start at the beginning. You can jump down to that verse and maybe move up a few lines. If not, it's going to take forever to constantly start from the beginning and
So you might be
go back.
closely reading a section.
A section at a time, absolutely. And just a question for you guys. It mentions to work in partners. How do you think we should be grouping up the students for this activity? What do you think?
I don't know what you guys said. In my opinion.
So-
Same levels.
Same levels? Do we agree with that? Disagree?
I don't know. Only
Okay.
because if you did the same levels, then your low ones are just stuck.
But
But then I feel like if you did high-low, then your high's doing all the work.
Okay.
I don't know
That's,
what would be
those are good points. I
best
would
if
say
it's
for this, it's better to have a strong and a weaker reader just so that they can hear, number one, the stronger reader read, and see how they're skimming and maybe, take that and use that as a model. Also, the stronger reader should be supporting the weaker reader, but the weaker reader, again, this is the third read. So they should be comfortable enough with it to be part of the group. I could see where you're nervous about that, because thinking about this, I don't know. But and your kids, so if you have ELL, special ed students, and you're thinking they're just really not they are gonna need more support, then you may want to take a small group or something like that. So this is flexible, you can adjust to your needs, but I would suggest doing heterogeneous groups for this. So are we good for day 2? We have a good understanding? It's very, there's not too much each lesson, because they really want you to focus in and work hard on little bits at a time. So like Sean, I'm glad you mentioned the skimming of the text, because you're gonna have to show that for some of the kids. Not everyone's gonna know how to skim the text. They might not have ever even heard that word before, so that was a good point. Go ahead, day 3.
Okay, for day 3, it looks like we're looking back at the focus question again and noticing that we collected evidence to show what happens to the C and not so much why it happened. So we're then modeling how to look, like you were saying, just before the C changed each time, what was happening in the story to see why it was happening. And then
And then they get to paint.
The most important fun part.
No, but I mean, I'm kind of excited that they actually get to do some sort of, but it's more they're using paints to visualize exactly what's happening. And the cool thing about this graphic organizer that they have is that they actually pan it out for them. So like it says, the fisherman went to the sea to ask for what, and then it says down at the bottom what the sea actually looked like. And it says in here, reason why they do is because sometimes third graders don't really necessarily know how to create graphic organizers, but they do know how to follow it, and then this is going to help them to build upon their knowledge of how to make graphic organizers down the line. And then they're just pretty much saying that then at the end of this day, they're going to be able to say, they're going to have a visualization of what's happening, as well as some notes about why it's happening or what's happening.
yeah, like to help them answer the focus question. Like basically, they use the text to, they refer back to the text to do this, to make that, to answer the focus question.
Yeah, I like how they pretty much just word for word took chunks of the text and created the graphic organizer so that they could easily go back and find that on their sticky notes. And here's just an example of some of the sticky note work that the students, and I modeled this as well. I put this on the smartboard, the lesson, and I took my sticky note and stuck it up there to show them, you're putting your sticky notes here, here's where your notes go. So again, it's not a lot in one day, but you're really focusing in and teaching these explicitly. Okay, great job. Okay, so let's move on to day 4.
Alright, so day 4, we revisited the focus question again. And then it was more of trying to get a focus sentence out of it in response, and it was really making sure that the answers were supported by the text, and if they weren't, then they weren't really accurate. So Shanna said, do not make stuff up.
No.
I wrote it.
Yes, do not.
And then they are going to share their sentences with the
Yeah.
groups and everything.
Yeah, and that was really important. It didn't, when you were reading it, you're like, okay, they're gonna share it. The kids really liked hearing everyone's thinking. And then, it's pretty much, it's going to be similar, because the story is what it is, but somebody always has that extra thought to add in that makes somebody go, oh, I never thought of it that way. So that was a good part of that activity. And here's an example of the story. I forgot to give that to you guys, of how they
reversing, and then starting the paragraph.
Yeah. So they refer back to the question, and they come up with a beginning sentence. So they're using their answer to their focus question to be the introduction to their paragraph. The sea changes throughout the story as the wife gets greedier and greedier. So that was her thinking about
They
the
just come
story.
up with one
It said
They
there
come
was
up with one.
topic.
the argument.
The argument,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yep, they
argument
focus
is
in
an
on
argument,
one.
and, yeah,
Mhm.
gotta back it up.
And then, and they also were encouraged to use transition words, which is shown on the graphic organizer. So they can use this graphic organizer to take those transitional words and plug this information right into their story.
Yes, it's put them on the board.
And then they just have to come up with their concluding sentence, one sentence. So they have their one sentence in the beginning and their one sentence at the end. The rest is coming from the information that they took notes on and put into their graphic.
I highlighted it because, but their partner, they should talk it through.
Yes.
They should tell
Absolutely, yeah.
their
they should.
story before they actually jump
Mhm.
in.
Yep.
Right.
Good.
I was working up too.
Yeah. So then day 6 is really an optional day. It's a follow-up activity. When I taught this lesson, my follow-up activity was a compare and contrast with, we have these books in our library actually. The Magic Fish is an adaptation. It's actually an easier level, so this is perfect for then your lower level students to feel more independent if they weren't feeling so independent with this one. This is a much easier read and it has illustrations. But there are some things that are different, and we did a compare and contrast with the Venn diagram activity. Now that wasn't listed in here. The one in here is really good. I didn't have time, unfortunately, and I really wish I made the time, so next year I'm definitely going to do this activity. They're having the kids act it out. And when you act out something, that's a really great fluency, comprehension-wise, it's excellent too, but fluency practice, because they're rehearsing, they're speaking out loud, they're really using their voice to convey the tone of the story. So that's a really good activity. So I haven't done it, I'm going to use it this year. So some other activities, Chris Harris actually did this. She put together, she saw Kelly Gallagher come speak, and she did a collaborative text with her basic skills students. So she focused in on the transitional words. You can't see, but it was highlighted on the smartboard. This is printed on the smartboard. And using the evidence-based terms. So she did a collaborative piece of writing with them. So I thought that was really good too for your lower level students if they're having some trouble with this. Okay. So that's it for the lesson. I think
like
it's
this
a really good lesson.
Explain the question, why did the fisherman keep going back to ask the fish for more? Happy wife, happy life.
Doesn't say that.
That would be great though. It was just like, just so you know.
They say
FYI.
Yeah. Always remember.
The kids had really great thinking about it. It was really a good lesson
Yeah,
to do.
one of the lines did say that.